This episode of Raiders Fan Radio is brought to you by DeadPiratesSports.com. That's Raider gear for the Raider family. Check out DeadPiratesSports.com. Raiders Fan Radio. You're listening to Sonny and Murf from the Dago Dungeon. That's right, a podcast by Raiders fans, for Raiders fans, the only fans that matter.
Touchdown! Kenny Stabler goes all the way.
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing. Just win, baby. I love this team. I think this team can win.
What is up, Raider Nation? Your old buddy Murf back here again for another fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Episode number 75, if you can believe that. So episode number 75, we always like to name our shows after a player, and there's only one guy to name it after, right? And that's Howie Long. Absolutely on the Mount Rushmore of Raiders on most people's lists. Not to be a list bully, but, you know, he's definitely a classic Raider and definitely a face of the organization and somebody that still flies his pirate flag high and still represents Raider Nation. So glad to celebrate him here on this episode of Raiders Fan Radio, number 75. You know, here on Raiders Fan Radio, we don't like to do podcast selfies. You know, podcasting by yourself is just, frankly, it's not any fun. And I guess it could or couldn't be fun to listen to, but it's just not any fun to do it by yourself. And so Sonny's been on hiatus. We've had, thankfully, some great guests that have come through the Dago Dungeon. We've had, of course, Uncle Mosh. We've had Raider Jeff Haskins from Dead Pirate Sports join us. We've had Chuck McCann from the New Jersey chapter of the Black Hole. We've had some great people that have come through to help out. But, you know, it just hadn't been the same without Sonny. And so today, you know, I think it's finally time. I think it's finally time to send up the alarm.
Murf, can you hear me?
Sonny!
Murf, hey. I'm here, bro, Chacho.
Sonny!
Hey, how's it going, Murf?
It's going good, man. You answered the call.
Yeah, you haven't called me in like 9 weeks, bro. What are you, are you still doing the show?
Yeah.
Oh.
This whole thing we started like 2 years ago? Yeah, it's still going.
Yeah. The last podcast we did, you were like, all right, I'll hit you up next week, and I haven't heard from you. So, like, are you still putting out episodes or what?
I ventured off onto a solo career, much like George Harrison, and I just hadn't been the Beatles, though, man. We had to get the band back together.
Yeah, Blues Brothers style, man. I've been on a car chase for 9 weeks, bro, but now I'm back. With the big-ass microphone on my car. I'm ready to go.
Well, welcome back, Sonny, to Raiders Fan Radio.
Yeah.
On behalf of everybody, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back!
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Me and Mr. Carter, huh? Welcome back.
Absolutely. That's it. You've been gone for 9 months. Yeah, you ain't got anything to say?
Gone for 9 months, 9 episodes.
Oh yeah, 9 episodes.
Yeah, man, I had to take some
9 weeks.
time off. Got a pretty big promotion at work, and so I had to kind of get that ironed out. kid started T-ball, so I had to figure out some coaching stuff. I'm coaching his T-ball team because, Murph, I'm not going to let anybody else coach my kid. And so I'm coaching T-ball now, so that's pretty fun. But the biggest thing is I just had to focus on work for a bit, and got some really awesome opportunities over there. And it's going good. It's going good. So we figured out a time slot that works. We're going to switch it up. You'll be taking the reins, and I'll be sitting shotgun. I'll be the scrub in TLC's song. And it's good. This is a new role for me. I just get to sit down and talk about my fourth favorite thing in life, which is the Raiders. And, it'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. And you've done a great job. You've been pulling down players. You've been pulling down players, Murph. Like, you're killing it, I had to step back so you could shine. That's basically what had to happen. I had to step back. I had to, erase the sun so you could step forward and venture deeper into this podcasting realm. So before we were kind of splitting the duties, 50-50, but now you're taking up all the production stuff and posting stuff on Libsyn. And, as you talked about last week with Kenny Stapler from the Pillaging podcast, there's a lot that goes into a podcast behind the scenes, and you've graciously decided to do all that. So I'm very thankful, and looking forward to being back, man. It's fun. And you know how difficult it was to not be on a podcast when Marquette King got released?
Oh.
It was killing me, bro. I was just like, I can't talk about it. And it's too late now, to talk about it. But all the digs and all the, So, I'm ready to go, though. I'm ready to go.
Well, we're glad to have you back. Glad to have you hanging out the passenger side of the ride, and let's not just gloss over it. You did say splitting duty.
I did say splitting. Well, I hang out with 2- and 4-year-olds all day with my kids, and then I hang out with teenagers after that. So, it's just front and center, bro. Yeah. Hey, Murph, did you know somebody called you an owl the other day, bro?
Call me a who?
Called you an owl.
An owl?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding me. This is the kind of comedy that was missing from the show.
Yeah. Try it out, people, man. It's a good one. I had this kid the other day. I go, hey, somebody called you an owl. He goes, who the F called me an owl? I go, bro, I don't know, but they called you an owl. He goes, who the F called me an owl? He's like this little gangster kid. I go, I don't know, bro, but he called you a freaking owl. He goes, who the F you, Sonny?
That's the Lord's work right there, man. That's how you. That's the kind of. That's how you bring him out of.
That's why I got promoted, Murph.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. All right, well, Sonny, well, good deal. Well, glad to have you back, man. We're looking forward to it. You were definitely missed. Thankful again to everybody that kind of sat in while you were on hiatus, but glad to have you back and glad to get you back in here and look forward to kind of seeing the new role, man. See how this might work. I might talk less. That's a good thing about this is that you're now the color commentator. You're the John Madden to my Pat Summerall, and that, Sonny, I think could be a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing I gave up drinking a long time ago, or else this could be more entertaining. But we'll see how it goes.
All right, here we go. So we're gonna do a little bit of a breakdown. We're gonna, of course, first hear Uncle Mosh. He's gonna tell us how you can contact the show. Then we're gonna get into a little bit of schedule talk. The schedule, Sonny, has been released. We've already had our text messages a flurry, trying to figure out what games we're going to attend this year. Then we're going to talk about the draft. We're going to get into the Sea of Fans mailbag. 2 weeks in a row, we've had back-to-back-to-back made men call the show, and a different group of made men this week, so that's always good to hear. Then we got an interview this week, Sonny. I got a chance to catch up with Anthony Capra. He is a pitching coach for the Wichita Wingnuts. And the guy is a diehard Raider fan. He just recently became a coach. Previously, he was a player, and by coincidence, he actually played in the Oakland A's organization for a while.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty cool and super cool guy. He's Italian like we are and a diehard Raider fan, and I think that Raider Nation's going to enjoy listening to that interview. Super, super cool guy. And so we got that, and then that's it. And then we'll hit the bricks for episode number 75 here for the Howie Long episode of Raiders Fan Radio. So to start off, let's go out to Uncle Mosh.
Hey, boys and girls, this is Uncle Mosh. That's right. Somebody actually claims Sonny and Murph. These two. Check them out on their website, RaidersFanRadio.com. You can friend them on Facebook at Raiders Fan Radio, or you can like their fan page at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Hey, I don't tweet. I don't even know how to use a Twitter, but they do. You can tweet them at Raiders Fan Radio. Call them. Leave a voicemail if you want. Go old school. 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Hey, do this. Please subscribe and rate Raiders Fan Radio on iTunes. You can listen to the show on all podcast services like Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, and many, many more. Okay, am I done? Did I say all the stuff I was supposed to say? All right, I'm out of here.
All right, Sonny, the schedule was released, as we mentioned, this past Thursday. And, man, it's always fun when the schedule comes out because especially for us as out-of-town Raider fans, it gives us an opportunity to start combing over the dates and the times and seeing which ones are going to be available for us to attend, which ones fits in and out of the holidays, all that kind of good stuff. And so, Sonny, are you prepared? I know you have copious notes. Are you prepared to give us a 20-minute per-game breakdown, in-depth analysis of how the Raiders' schedule and the record is going to play out at the end?
Murph, much like the 147 mock drafts we've seen on Twitter, it is irrelevant at this day and time to go over each game. Like, yes, we could sit here and speculate based on the past, and that might be fun, but it's not reality. We haven't even drafted yet. We haven't even figured out if Mac's going to play. Ooh, I know. Trigger. So, there's so many X factors at play, Murph. It'd be pointless for us to sit here and spend an hour breaking down each game and going through them and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think rather let's talk about the schedule as a whole, right? How about Gruden versus McVay to open up the season with the second Monday night game to start it all off? Talk about rating from the ratings perspective. That's BA, right? Gruden versus McVay in our house. But this is going to be like, all right, Gruden, here you go. Here's one of the young up-and-coming coaches in McVay, who some could say is a young Gruden-like, right? Because Gruden was known for his offense back in the day. McVay's known for his offense. And the Rams are no slouch. And so this ain't no cupcake schedule to start off with for Gruden, right? Start with the Rams, and then boom, where are we at for week 2, Murph? At Denver, at your number one AFC West rival, right? And so the NFL didn't do the Raiders any favors by saying, here you go, Gruden, let's see what you got right off the bat. I kind of dig it, Murph, myself.
Sometimes it feels like the NFL stacks things against us intentionally, and while that's the conspiracy, theorist Raider fan in me that comes out. But the bottom line, though, like, give them a trial by fire. Like, why not? Like, give them the Rams early, as you mentioned, at the Broncos, and then they got to go to at Miami, which we know about the East Coast struggles that this team has had over the years. And, heck, that's when it all fell apart last year, right? Was week 3 on the road in Washington. So, man, give them, on the road. That's actually my anniversary. Be always interesting is that when a football game lands on your anniversary, thank you, honey, for putting up with me and my Raider fandom over all these years. That's a tough one. And then, the Browns at home gets easier, but then we got to go have essentially an extended home game at San Diego. I always love those games, especially now they're playing that stupid little soccer stadium. Like, I actually kind of like that game. But then what about the Seahawks coming to Oakland in week 6? You think there's any intrigue there? You think there's any storylines?
That game's in London, though. That's the London game.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. But
the
still,
cool thing, though, is then you have a bye week afterwards, which isn't that bad.
So what about the intrigue there, though? You think, that Marshawn and I think it was new quarterback Josh Johnson this week. Yeah, they had the schedule release video where they, and it was like, you see that? And then when the Seahawks came up, it was like, oh, like he didn't forget, man.
Marshawn said no comment, though, right? He was like, no comment. He didn't want to say nothing, but he kind of smirked, though,
Yeah. So how do you, that's going to be interesting to watch that storyline.
And Bruce Irvin, right?
And Bruce
both
Irvin.
Those guys are going to want to eat that day. But the cool thing about the schedule, though, is they gave us a bye week coming out of that London game, which is kind of nice if you think about it, right? And then if you look at it like this, Chargers is just down in L.A., Seahawks in London, but then they're back for the bye week, home for the Colts. The Thursday night game, when you ask any team in the NFL if they like Thursday night games, the answer is what, Murph?
They don't like the short week.
They don't like the short week. And then on top of that, hey, by the way, here's Thursday night, and you're going on the road. Then you're like, what, do you hate me? But they got the Niners on the road. I think that's beautiful for the Raiders. It's a road game. It's on Thursday night, but they can still sleep in their own beds, do their normal stuff like it was a home game because it's only an hour up the road. for what might be the last Battle of the Bay, Murph. I think that game's going to be badass. That's one of the games I'm happy to see on the schedule. That's cool.
That's going to be a good one. The atmosphere is going to be killer. You know, there's going to be 6 Niner fans, and then the rest will be silver and black.
And the Niner fans will be 3 of them will show up at halftime because they're eating their avocado sandwiches and wine spritzers in the lounge and stuff like that. You know, but you know who's going to be pumped up for that game too, almost more than the Seahawk game, is Lynch. Because Lynch is all about the Battle of the Bay. He's an Oakland guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, come on, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. That's going to be a fun one. And then, of course, we got the Chargers then back at home. And, you know, the Chargers are weird because they're the team that always starts off terrible, and then they start to catch fire about the midway point. I hope that's not the time that they start to catch fire. But then we go back-to-back on the road at Arizona and then back all the way on the East Coast again at Baltimore. I think some of these East Coast games, thankfully there's not that many of them, but there is 2 in there with Miami and then now Baltimore. That's going to be interesting. It seems like we felt like we got past that, like we kind of slayed that dragon, that whole playing on the Eastern Seaboard and all that. But then it kind of crept back again. So hopefully we get over that and can knock off the Ravens before we take on the Chiefs, right? Take on the Chiefs at home.
I think that the Chiefs right before that game in the 13th week on December 2nd, I think the Chiefs have a bye week the week before. So when we're flying out to the Ravens, the Chiefs are on bye week, then we got to fly back, and they'll have had 2 weeks to prepare for us. Well, we're coming back from a long trip back east. So that could be a difficult game for the Raiders. And we play the Chiefs 2 out of the last 5 games of the year, which is going to kind of be interesting because the Chiefs have kind of been on Achilles' heel despite, you know, recent success and stuff like that a couple years ago. So that'll be kind of fun.
Well, we had the one game at home that was great, right? That was the miraculous comeback. Derek Carr hitting Crabtree in the front court of the end zone. But then we went at Kansas City and it was the ugliest game maybe of the year. I think what's interesting that you brought up too about that is that, remember was it last year before? I can't remember when it was, when we went over Andy Reid's stats coming off a bye week. You remember how
he's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So that is a little scary there. But then we go Steelers at home. That'll be fun because that's a Sunday night game. So and by that time we're going to be getting into playoff implications and stuff. That's going to be a blast.
That's a rivalry. I mean, outside of the AFC West, like this schedule's pretty cool because outside of our standard AFC West opponents, you have the Niners, which we all hate, right? You have the Steelers, which we all hate, and you have the Seahawks, who used to be in what division, Murph?
That would be the AFC West.
So you have like 3 additional rivalry games, you know, that if you're any knowledgeable Raider fan, you hate those other 3 teams as well. So that's kind of cool. I kind of like this schedule, man. It's kind of fun.
And not even really, I mean, as far as NFC rivalries go, tag the Rams there even. Like that's an old LA rivalry right there. So I mean that's a cool one too, you know. So at Cincinnati, you know, that hopefully
and on the Rams, you know what 2 cornerbacks they just picked up in the offseason?
Oh yeah, Marcus Peters and who's the other one?
Keep to leave.
There you go. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right? So talk about, you know, if you look at last year, right? Marcus Peters in the fight, right? That was a big deal. And then Talib and Crabtree, they're both on the Rams, and they're both coming to our – dude, that's just – that kind of gives me the chills, you know? They're both coming to our house week 1 along with McVay. Like, that's cool, man. That's
cool. There's a lot of good storylines in that game for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so we got at Cincinnati. That's kind of, I would say that's probably one of the more, that and maybe the Colts at home. That's one of the more uneventful games. They're all important, I know, but that's one of the more, when in the scheme of things, when you consider all the other storylines and rivalries, that's probably one of the more mild games. What?
Murph!
What?
He's the coach of the Browns.
Hugh. Oh, yeah, see, there you go.
Oh, yeah. He's coming back, too. He's coming on September 30th.
There you go.
Oh. Yeah, that's cool too.
That's cool too. And then the Colts, really, they're the ones that knocked us out. If you think about stupid Trent Cole breaking Derek Carr's leg, that's got some. That's got a little bit. There's a story. There's a little story there. Yeah. So at Bengals, I mean, that's probably this is probably the sleepiest game on the schedule, frankly.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, but then we finished the Broncos at home, and then at the Chiefs. It's the Broncos at home. If it's a primetime game, it's Christmas Eve. If Bruce Irvin didn't kill Marquette King in week 2, he's definitely going to kill him on Christmas Eve at home.
Merry freaking Christmas, Marquette King.
Merry Christmas. You know, it's going to be in front of our fans with probably playoff implications. somebody going to blow him up. And I loved Bruce Irvin saying in his tweet, "I've already got fine money." That's the best, man. It's beautiful. And then Kansas City, Sonny, to close out the year. And speaking of playoff implications, at Kansas City, it's going to be cold. Even though it's going to be a 1 o'clock game, it's still, that time of year on the road in that stadium, that's going to be obnoxious. I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Those last two games, if you think the Raiders are going to have any success this year, you can automatically assume those last two games are going to have playoff implications, Chiefs have had a major restructuring. Broncos major restructuring. Raiders major restructuring. So we don't know. I mean, the Chargers could be the best team in the AFC West for all we know at this point. But those last two games could be pretty epic, and especially at the Chiefs for the last. Oh man, and that's twice in 5 weeks we'll have played them, dude. That's pretty cool.
That's
pretty cool. Legit. So I think the schedule's fun. There's a lot of. Outside of AFC West, a lot of additional storylines. Hugh coming back. You got Marcus Peters and Talib and the Rams in week 1. You got the Seahawks in London, which will be kind of cool. Steelers, the last battle of the Bay before the Raiders move to Vegas. Like, it's a cool schedule, man. I'm stoked for it.
I am too. I think it's going to be fun. It's not. It doesn't seem to be as challenging. It does early in the year, but other than that, I think it's probably pretty friendly, right? Considering like the normal conspiracy theories that we come up, how the NFL hates us and all that. It's actually kind of friendly when you think about it. And I'm with you. I love the storyline. There's literally just about every single game, other than that Bengals game and I don't know, maybe the Cardinals on the road. Like there's a couple in there that you don't have any super storylines. But outside of that, there's a pretty big storyline on all these.
Is Carson still playing for the Cardinals?
No, I think he retired, right? Didn't he retire?
I'm not sure.
I think he retired. But you got David Johnson coming back, and we know what an absolute nightmare running backs that can catch are for our football team and have been for, 10 years now? You know what I mean? Like somebody like that coming back, I mean, that could get ugly. And, of course, you got Larry Fitzgerald working out of the slot. That's going to put immediate pressure on anybody that we have because, Travis Johannesburg Carey is now gone. So,
what's that guy? Isn't Melvin going to play the slot, you think?
Melvin.
I'm not sure if he's going to play it or not, but, I mean, you would think that he's going to be a starter. You would think that him and Conley are the starters unless we draft.
Okay, timeout.
What?
You did not just go to Conley, did you?
I did go to Conley. Okay. Let's put a fork in the schedule because I got something to run by you about Conley, and then we got to get to the draft.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? This is EJ Manuel. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio. Super excited to get this season back rolling. Hope you guys are having a great offseason.
100% effort. 24/7. 365. I did the math. So the chances of you beating me, 0%. Best in America.
Sonny, 0% chance of you being him, the best in America, with a title card that reads Conley Island. Now, I'm going to read you one stat line, and then I want you to give me your feedback. Conley, Garyon Conley, starting cornerback for the Oakland Raiders, dealing with injuries his whole career so far, his young career. 2 games played, 1 pass defended, 5 tackles, 2 assists. Sound like an island to you?
In the immortal words of Janet, Justin Timberlake shouldn't have grabbed my shirt, Jackson, I will say this. What have you done for me lately? Ooh, ooh, ooh. What have you done for me lately? Dude, why is Conley making – that's a commercial? I haven't seen that. That's a commercial?
That's a for real commercial with him like riding a bike and like doing drills and stuff, wearing his Raiders gear. So this is not like a just post Ohio State before I got drafted kind of thing.
Okay.
He's wearing Raider gear and he's talking about being the best in America. And the thing, and I'm actually okay with all of the audio until we get to the title card and it says Conley Island. And I'm like, what?
This is the same Conley who last summer was going at McKenzie saying he didn't have a problem with the shins, right? And then had surgery on the shins, right? And then even as soon as like 2 weeks ago, there was a report saying he can like lift weights, but he still can't practice with everybody because he's still recovering from his shin surgery that he never had a problem with his shins in the past. This is the same Conley we're talking about here?
That's the same guy.
And he's already saying he's an island?
An island. Conley
you know
Island.
You know why he's an island? Because he's not playing. He's sitting by himself on the freaking sidelines, man. That's why he's on an island. Give me a break. That's the stupidest thing in the world I've ever heard.
It's done, and it reminds me of, not because of the same behavior, but of like when we were critical of Marquette King early on, where it was like, all right, we loved his talent. And actually, before Raiders even let Leckler go, we were campaigning for Marquette King. We're like, man, this kid's a boomer. He's great. But then he started with the antics, and it was like, wait a minute. It was like, gave you a cause for the pause, right? It was like, this is something not easy, buddy. This is what it feels like with Conley. It's like, all right, man, look, I get you got marketing companies behind you, and there's a lot of money out there, and I get all that. But at a certain level, there's got to be a certain amount of humility that kicks in and says, you know what? I haven't done anything to denote me being the best in America, nor an island, which is famous, obviously, because of Revis Island, of being a guy that can shut down anybody that's in front of me or my half of the field. If you're talking about that level of dominance as a player and you're self-glossing, no, I got a problem with that. And look, this is not us rooting against you, Gary and Conley.
I hope Conley is the greatest quarterback of all time,
Amen.
Murph.
Amen.
But he ain't done nothing yet.
Amen.
He ain't done, you know what I'm saying? That's like me promoting a video for my kid who just played his second T-ball game. He's going to be the home run champ. He's going to be the greatest thing. Like,
he's going to the league, Sonny. That kid is going to the league. I've seen his swing. He's going to the league. He's getting a scout.
He's skipping college. He can keep his eye on the ball. He's skipping college, going straight to the pros. Like, come on, Conley. What the heck, dude?
Hey, off mic, I ran him his stats by Anthony Capra, and I sent him a picture of
nice,
a video.
my boy.
Sent him a highlight video of your son at 4 years old. Yeah,
good.
Yeah, playing first base at T-ball. He thinks that kid's got a good future.
Well, now he knows where to run when he hits the ball, so I'm thinking he's destined for the pros, So, I mean, Conley, I'm starting to be annoyed with Conley, to be honest with you, Murph. It's like the Raiders, and this was the theme last year. Oh, wait till Obi gets on the field. Oh, wait till Conley. That's like false hopes, man. Vaporware until they produce. Which brings you to the question of the draft now, Murph, if we can move on to that.
Yeah, please.
It's like, Mackenzie gave his press conference. I think it was yesterday or the day before. By the time you're listening to this, who knows? He gave it on Friday, I think, of last week. And, you're not going to get much from these guys, right? Like, we talked earlier before the show. Nobody's given anything away of who they're going to get. And if you supposedly hear something, that's going to be misdirection. Nobody's given out any insights into who's drafting who. When you log on to Twitter, and I kind of had some time, Murph, when I took a step back from the show, to just kind of like look at everything we do, not only us, but podcasters and bloggers and people who write things. Like, so much of today is clicks, and so much of what's we all do at this day and age is to get clicks. And so, when you're putting your 36th mock draft on Twitter and you have 36 different selections by the Raiders for each one of those, what are you really analyzing there? You know what I'm saying, Murph? And so it's like, when it comes to the draft and when it comes to Mackenzie's press conference, he didn't say much. There's been a lot of speculation about, will him and Gruden get along and who's going to run the board and all that kind of stuff. And it's like they're trying to make them fight amongst each other and stuff like that, But then I remembered, I read up on it. Gruden was at Tennessee. I think it's like an assistant coach or something like that. Mackenzie, I think, went to Tennessee. They both, I think they both for a year were at Green Bay together under Ron Wolf, who was a Davis, disciple. And now they're back here in Oakland. So it's not like Gruden and Mackenzie don't know each other. They've known each other. They have ties that go back for years. So any of this nonsense that they don't get along, that Gruden's running the team, that Mackenzie better get this draft done or he's out, that's all crap, dude. You know what I'm saying, Murph? They're going to go after good football players, and that's it. And then you could say this. Yep, they're going to go for a high motor, highly intelligent football player. Would you be accurate in that statement, Murph? Of course you would, right? That's what everybody wants to get. But the real question, Murph, is what is the Raiders' biggest need in the draft? When you look at the issues with Conley, and we drafted him first last year, Obi is not even on the field yet. What is the Raiders' biggest need when it comes to the draft? And so what do you think offense or defense, or what position is the Raiders' biggest need at this point?
Well, I think only people inside the walls of Alameda really know the truest evaluation of that. Because we as fans, we look at our team and say, okay, here's where we have a deficit at. We have a deficit in interior pass rush. We have a deficit in the secondary. We have a soon-to-be deficit at running back. We have a deficit at right tackle. But only the coaches and only the GM really, truly know, because they're the ones that, although I know they just met their players and whatnot, they're the ones that have the hours upon hours of game film to break down. They're the ones that are talking to these guys. They're the ones that understand where their hearts and their heads are at. So really, those people are the only ones that know what the needs are. The rest of it is just, even from the most professional draft analysis guys in the world, like the Mayocs and McShays and all that, even they are throwing darts at a dartboard. Unless it's somebody like when the Colts came out with the number 1 pick and they're like, we're drafting Andrew Luck.
We're going to suck for luck for the whole year.
You know what I mean? It was like, that's it. That's our guy. And you knew a month before the draft started that was going to be who they were going to do. Like, it was no mystery to it. Yeah. Outside of those type of scenarios, you just don't know who it's going to be. So you ask the question, what do I see? Well, I see as a fan, we need help in the secondary. The league is going more and more pass heavy. It's getting more and more diverse and complicated and intricate, the way that teams work through throwing the football. And you hear terms like, buzzwords like route trees, and you hear all this stuff get thrown out there, but the end result is that guys like John Gruden, guys like Sean McVay have a genius mind for this stuff, and they know how to get players open in whatever that may be. There's different ways you can, be faster than somebody. You can run a timing route. You can, whether the quality of your route running, like a Larry Fitzgerald, whatever. There's a million different ways to get people open. But the bottom line is this, is that they're working on getting people open. Well, if you don't have any people to cover those guys that are working to get open, then you're in trouble. Like, one of the reasons why did the Philadelphia Eagles beat, a historic offense like Tom Brady and the Patriots, was because they were able to take away that passing game. First they took Brandon Cooks out of the game, but you kind of pigeonhole them and to force them into doing specific things. Instead of letting them take what they want, you only give them a certain thing. So that's what the Raiders have to do. And so I think that secondary, to me, is the biggest need. But that's not what the coaches are telling you. That's not what Gruden's telling you. When you listen to Gruden, what's he say? He's now a couple of times referenced interior pass rush and how it disrupts the quarterback. That's clearly a big deal to him. So maybe maybe he's fine with Gary and Conley. Maybe he's fine with Obi Melifonwu because he sees something that we don't know. So we as the fans on the outside see one thing. The people that are inside the wall see something completely different. So I think the Raiders it's going to be defense. All right, so there we can cut.
You think so? Would you bet the farm defense no matter what?
I think so, because I think the general consensus from all the experts and what these guys are great at is evaluating talent. So whether they are great as far as evaluating where that talent goes, that's kind of a crapshoot. But as far as when you look at Mayock's top 5 running backs, I think that's the kind of stuff you can look at and go, okay, this guy knows how the position needs to be played, what the athleticism is of the athlete, how to take their game film, their combine workouts, all those things, put it all together, and who's the best player at that position. I think that's what they do brilliantly. So all of those guys all agree that in the top 10, it's defense. Like, unless you need a quarterback and you're willing to stretch like a lot of teams are to go get a quarterback, outside of that, this is a defensive-heavy draft early on, except for a couple of linemen where you could see somebody like Gruden make a call and say, all right, we're going to go ahead and shore up this line that's had a problem on the right side and draft somebody to go and play right tackle, okay? And if you think of it in those terms, Donald Penn's going to retire or at least start to degrade as a quality of player in the next year or two. So you're going to need somebody to follow him up. Is David Sharp that guy? I don't know. We don't know. Maybe they do or don't. So I could see if they go offense, it's going to be in there unless by some miraculous reason Saquon Barkley falls to them or something like, which it never would happen. But say something like that were to happen, then sure, you take a once-in-a-lifetime player or once-in-a-generation anyways player, you're going to take him. But outside of that,
but he ain't falling that far.
He ain't falling that far. So you're going to take the best defensive player available, I believe, at that. Now, which spot they need to address most? I don't know, Sonny. I think, again, that's where the crapshoot happens. But I'm with you. So, and here's the thing, too, is that you got to take what maybe Gruden is saying this stuff about interior pass rush because he's trying to misdirect us. Because, listen, if we're hearing it, you sure as heck know the other 31 GMs and coaches around the league are hearing that kind of stuff, too. And this thing this is a poker game. The first round of the draft, and really, frankly, the whole thing, is one poker game. You're not going to flip your cards down unless you have the number one pick and you know who you're going to get. And no one can beat you to it. And outside of a case like that, you're not going to tip your hand. So these guys, anybody that you take anything that GMs say or coaches say, it's all misdirection. And the last thing I'll say about it is that, Al Davis was the absolute king of this stuff. And so was Madden. If you come up with something as a fan or as another team or in the media and it was inaccurate, sometimes they just let you run with it. Okay, yeah. You want to believe that we watered down the fields before the game? Go ahead. You want to believe that we put helium in the football or write nasty messages on the football? Go ahead. You believe that. You get in your own head about things. We'll handle our football. That's what Reggie and John are doing. Everybody get into their own heads about what they think they're going to do. These guys know exactly what they're going to do. They're very calculated, and they're not going to tip their hand, not one bit.
What's the saying there, Murph? Never go into a battle of wits with a Sicilian when death is on the line. Like, doesn't all of this just seem like that? Maybe Gruden is saying it's the defense interior pass rush because we have excellent edge rushers in Mack and Irvin who can get to the outside, but if there's no interior pass rush, all the quarterback has to do is step up, and then that negates Mack and Irvin. But if we had an interior pass rush, then the quarterback couldn't step up, and that would solve all of our issues. Or maybe Gruden is saying that to misdirect because we do have a horrible secondary at this point in time. According to ourlads.com, do you know who the current starting cornerback is out opposite side of Conley?
Yeah, I sure do.
Melvin.
False.
No?
He's listed as the third. Now, this is our lads, of course, so it could be wrong. He's listed as the third behind Dexter McDonald and Conley. You have Darius Hillary as the other starting quarterback for the Raiders right now, and Sharice Wright's playing your nickel back. So It's obvious that we need help in the secondary because we don't even know if the first guy listed is even going to play, right? And so, but then again, is Bowman going to sign? I don't know. You know if Bowman's going to sign or not? We picked up Whitehead. He's decent. Marquell Lee had a decent year. Corey James is coming up. So in all reality, Murph, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they picked any of the defensive spots outside of Mack and Irvin, who are pretty much our go-tos on defense. Any other spot, Murph, would it be a dumb pick? I don't think so, man. I think any spot on the defense outside of Mack and Irvin would be an upgrade at this point in time.
Yeah, when you look at the players that are going to be there, so if you take an interior linebacker, which, we've well documented on our show, we got misdirected on that one last year. Right. So, other than safety, I mean, I think that,
it's getting crowded up there, isn't it?
It's getting a little crowded. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think that's the guy, right? Like that's the big safety or the big name in the draft. So outside of a player like that, I mean, is that addressing a need? I don't know. Look, you've already, quote, addressed the need twice. So if you haven't got it right, if you got to draft safeties early on 3 times to get it right, something's wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like cornerback too, DJ Hayden, Gary and Conley. We're going to go a third time with another cornerback.
That's where I was saying earlier about a couple shows ago about Reggie, when we were talking to Matt Schneidman of the Mercury News. I think this is a legacy-defining draft for Reg, and that the whole idea of him being on a 1-year prove it and all that stuff. I'm not sure I buy into that because of the relationship, like you already mentioned, that Gruden and Reggie have. So I think that there's a lot more, and there's again misdirection. if people want to think that there's dysfunction between those two guys, you go right ahead. Go ahead. You think about that. But the reality of it is that I doubt it's that. But there is this, though. Reggie, I think, not deserved. I think it's fair to criticize his actions in the draft. You could even criticize some of his free agent moves as a whole, or his personnel moves as a whole, including free agency. But when you look at the draft, he knocked it out of the park in the 2014 draft. Cooper shown signs of being an amazing player, and I don't think anybody would begrudge him for what he did, even if Cooper doesn't ever develop hands like we all think that he's capable of having. That was a smart pick. Like, that was a right pick. Carl Joseph was a right pick. But all these others from the second round down, like, dude, like it starts to fall off a cliff real fast with Reggie when you look at
but you can't look at that in a vacuum. You have to look at Reggie McKenzie draft over the last 3 or 4 years versus everybody else. How have they done? What have the third-round picks from the Cincinnati Bengals done from 2015 accomplished, right? So I don't think it's fair to look at McKenzie's draft and go, oh, Jihad Ward's been a bust. How has Jihad Ward's pick, he was third round, right?
Yeah.
So how has that third round pick in Jihad Ward compared to the Steelers' third round pick or the Browns' third round pick, or you know what I'm saying? So I think there needs to be a comparison across the board, and then we can have a better understanding of McKenzie.
That's fair.
And we did that last year. Remember, we did that big old spreadsheet, and it seemed like McKenzie was better. One of my favorite follows on Twitter, and I think some people, I've heard him, they find him annoying, but I think he's pretty cool. And he breaks stuff down really, really well. And I think he deserves a lot more attention than he gets. It's Stankanova.
Oh yeah, Stanikova.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's the guy that tags us like 18 posts in a row. And it's funny because at first I'm like, holy cow, I'm like, what does this guy do? Why are notifications blowing up? And I'm like, what is this guy doing? And then I start reading through his stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty good.
He tags everybody, and he still has his MySpace account linked to his Twitter profile page, right? But dude, look at his stuff. He goes into some crazy breakdowns, and I think some people look at it and say this guy's crazy. But when you look at it, dude, his stuff actually makes sense. And he just did a big breakdown on Twitter, looking at the majority of second and third round picks and how they're not Pro Bowlers or quality starters. And he broke it all down and compared Reggie's picks to everybody else's picks and how many players were playing above Mario Edwards, and it's pretty cool. And so, you can't really compare Reggie in a vacuum in and of itself. He's had his hits and he has had his misses. And I think the same can be said about any other GM across the country. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Sonny. Yeah, absolutely. Don't look at him in a vacuum. If you look at it comparatively, and look, I don't know. I don't look at the other 31 teams, not near as close. So I think that's definitely a fair position to come from.
But that said, if he picks another cornerback who has health issues, I'm done.
You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio with Sonny and Murf, a podcast by Raiders fans for Raiders fans.
All right, Sonny, next up here on Raiders Fan Radio, we have our Sea of Fans mailbag. So for those of you listening, you can always call our show at 909-345-3346. That's the Raiders Fan Radio hotline. It's open 24/7. You can call it anytime. Leave us your take. Leave us a story. If you do it 3 times and you get played on the air, then we dub you as a made man. And, Sonny, we can't always play all the voicemails, but we definitely play the best of them. And this week we got some good ones. And we got 3 made men. This is 2 weeks in a row now here on Raiders Fan Radio that we've got made men calling 3 in a row. So we're going to get to those voicemails as soon as I find I gotta find the thing. The what's it called? The Sea of Fans thing. The intro. I'm gonna cut all this out. There it is.
There he is, fading, looking. He's under the gun. He's caught. He throws. It is. Oh, he caught it.
All right, Sonny, first up is our old buddy Aaron, the Q-Dog Raider.
Greetings, Murf, Uncle Moss. All the best to you on hiatus, Sonny. Aaron, Q-Dog Raider coming from the east side. Making my weekly call. We'll try to be more frequent heading into the draft, which is less than 2 weeks away. As Al Davis once said, the greatness of the Raiders is in their future, so let's look to the future. We need to build through the draft. We've got a lot out there. And, of course, with, I don't even know how to describe it, the deplorable activity of last year's supposed number one draft pick, Reuben Foster out of Alabama. I'm so glad that we didn't draft him. Sometimes the best draft picks are those that you simply do not make and pull the trigger on. And, of course, Reggie's taken a lot of grief, a lot of guff about who he has and has not selected. We cannot be more happy that he had shown a little more discretion and rolled the dice on our soon-to-be number one corner in Conley, as opposed to taking somebody that would have actually sullied the Raider brand, the shield, and everything that we look forward to, such as, the protection of womanhood. But let's move forward. The hit list. We need to go ahead and trim a lot of fat from this roster and look to, once again, build through the draft and look to our future and save some overall salary. First up, mistake. Let's erase Jihad Ward. Goodbye. DeAndre Washington. I've banged this drum for a while. You're little, you're small, you're packed with power, but you know what? You bring very little to the table and you do not play special teams. See ya. Seth Roberts. He needs to go ahead and check the fashion world, brush his hair, gloss his eyelashes, and just go ahead and be that man candy that you need to be, but do not play football or try to receive passes from number 4 any longer. Get out of here. Donald Penn, you've done well, you've served your purpose, but you know what? Your time has passed. You're injured, you're selfish, you're an embarrassment on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. See you. Reggie Nelson, you know where I stand. I think he's just going to be an OTA assistant, but don't let him make the 53. Keon Hatcher, gotta go. Johnny Holton, just no consistency. Goodbye. And Connor Cook, the experiment is over. Why in the world we took somebody who couldn't even be the captain of the Michigan State football team as the backup and heir apparent is beyond me. The experiment is over. We need to re-sign Navarro Bowman. Top priority. Make that happen. Now, we've talked about linebackers that we need to acquire in the first round. I say we draft down, acquire more picks in the later rounds, get Vita Vea, shore up the middle. And there's somebody that just hit the market. Hey, newsflash, Dez Bryant. Oh, it ain't over. Somebody wake up, Uncle Moss. I know I'm long-winded, but you know what? I'm not done yet.
Sorry, Q-Dog.
Dez Bryant has hit the market. We need to go ahead and slash all of our 3 through whatever wide receiver core. Bring him in. You talk about a bully that can work the middle. We need to get this man in and get him quick. We don't have to sign him, but you know what? Let's see what he's got in the tank. We've got the, cap space. We need to make this happen. In the slot, can you imagine this, man? We need to go ahead and acquire everyone we can for dominance, total dominance. That's what it's about. Al Davis, another quote. He says, people say that you have to take what the defense gives you. We're going to take what we want. Let's get Dez and make the most prolific offense in modern history a reality. And next, we've got to extend Khalil Mack. Quit playing. No more dilly-dallying, no more posturing. Let's go ahead and make a first ballot Hall of Famer locked up for life. Now, I'm wrapping up this phone call because I know it's taken quite a while in order to, spit out. But I've got a young bruh. I got one of my Neos. He's coming in for a visit, a free agent. We need linebackers. I'm floating the name Marcus Porter. You ain't heard of this kid. He's out of Fairmont State. I think, he can do what needs to be done. In the Senior Bowl, when they had, the breakout drills, he was 10 for 10 on defending tight ends and also slot receivers. You don't get that kind of versatility, but you heard it here first. All right, you all take care. Love Silver, live black. Support the Raiders. The hell with the haters. All right. Aaron Q-Dog Raider out.
One of the best. Thank you, Aaron Q-Dog Raider, for the call. Sonny, I was with him on 95.5% of that phone call. I love where he was at on the draft. Love the idea. Talk about a position of need. How about pulling a linebacker that can cover, probably in a later round, especially a player like that out of Fairmont State. Probably gonna, that's even a 6th or 7th type round player. But the Dez stuff, man, I just, even if he had better hands, even if he could catch, because we just don't have the money. Like you wouldn't tie up that much room in an aging player. Look, we just tied up a bunch of money in Jordy. They're not going to do it again with Dez. And while I agree that he's got the physical ability to work the middle, Dez doesn't look at himself as a secondary I mean secondary in terms of, on the depth chart. He's going to go be a number one somewhere and sign for number one money. Like, I just don't see the Raiders as having the kind of money to do that, and nor as much of a necessity. What do you think?
I'm sorry. We just cleared out our locker room issues. Why would you want to bring in locker room issues? Des Bryant is about Des Bryant, period, end of story. We just got rid of Crabtree. We just got rid of Marquette Queen. And why would you want to bring in another guy who's about himself and puts him above the team? Des Bryant has no affiliation with the Raiders. He has no affinity for the Raiders, and he has no really care for the Raiders. So why would you bring in that guy at the tail end of his career? That makes no sense. I get Gruden and his stance of wanting to bring in older players who want to prove something, but not Des Bryant. I don't see him fitting with the Raiders at all, and I don't think they make a run at him. So Q-Dog, appreciate the call. I loved everything you said. Thank you for your well wishes for me when I'm on hiatus. I'm back. But, no Des Bryant.
Sonny, Murf, Uncle Mosh. What's going on, fellas? Red here up in Yakima. Getting ready for draft. Can't wait. I still think we should take a big man with our first pick. I think that would just open it up so much for our backfield, and it would really help everybody around them. I mean, it would help our linebackers, and it sure help our cornerbacks, because there's some good talent later on in the draft. There's this kid Quentin Meeks out of Stanford, which will probably be a second and third round draft pick. There's running backs for days. There's deep draft for running backs. So, I mean, we could take one in the third round, and there's just so much to do, man. I'm getting excited. We've gone from one side of the spectrum in free agency, picking up all the old guys, and we go to the draft, and all the new young bucks, up and comers. I think our best free agent pickup will be Bruno Giacomini when it's all said and done. So I think our offensive line will be good. It'll be back to prestigious again. Yeah, man. Can't wait. Can't wait for season to get rolling again. You guys have a good one, man. Can't wait till you guys are all back in the studio again. Go Raiders.
Well, we're all back in the studio this week, Red, and thank you for your phone call as always. Sonny had something very interesting there. He mentioned, the interior pass rush, or the interior, defensive lineman need, and if it's not a guy like Vita Vea, who I think is obviously we listen to the guys that look at and evaluate talent in the league, he's the top of the list. But also Maurice Hurst from Michigan is interesting as well. And the reason why is because is diagnosed with a heart condition. It was the same heart condition that Star Lotulelei was, if you remember, back before his draft. And, that thing quickly, went away. It was just like a little blip on an EKG or something. And he's perfectly healthy and is one of the more dominant defensive tackles in the league. And I think that Hurst could be one of those guys who, if the Raiders don't go with Vita Vea at 10, maybe somebody like Maurice Hurst, if he lasts that long, or even people are thinking that guy could be a top 10 pick too. So anyways, one way or the other, whoever it is, I think that's definitely a fair way to look at it, and a fair position to land on is defensive tackle.
I'm sorry, did you say Hurst had a heart condition?
I did.
No. Moving on. Again, this is your first round pick. Like,
oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. No more.
We've already had first rounders with heart conditions.
No more freaking gambles. They're replaying right now on NFL Network, I think, the 2014 NFL Draft.
That was a good one.
Khalil Mack just got picked and stuff.
Beautiful.
It was cool. It's like you never know how they're going to work out. It's either great or you're promoting yourself being an island and you haven't played it down yet. Or minimal downs anyway.
All right, last up, we're going to hear from our good buddy Chuck, the president of the New Jersey chapter of the Black Hole. This is a little bit of a long one. He had to call and then call back, so it goes a little bit over our 3-minute mark here. But enjoy.
What's going on, Murf, Uncle Mosh? This is Chuck McCann from Jersey. Hey, it's starting to feel like football season around here. Got the optional mini camp thing going on. The whole crew seems to be turning up, minus Mac, but it's all good. They'll sort him out, and then he'll be there when it matters. I even seen some pictures around of Conley actually running, so I guess he's cleared to be running. Draft week's here. We got a little party going on out here. Irish Cottage Inn, a.k.a. the Black Hole in New Jersey. And for me, the most exciting part is the release of the season schedule. Google Voice, maybe it'll let me go through the first 4 games. Let's see. Home opener, at home, Monday Night Football, the no-home Rams. You can't call yourself the L.A. Rams, guys, until you get some L.A. fans. We all know who the L.A. home team is, and it ain't the Rams. Never was, never will be. I can't lie. I'm a little scared about this game. I'm not fully sold on the hype surrounding the Rams yet, but this has the potential to be a bad start for us. I'd hate to start out in prime time with a loss. Well, prime time for the West Coast anyway. Kickoff here is going to be at 10:20 at night, so I'd really hate to start off with a loss after staying up past my bedtime. I'm scared to predict this one, but screw it. Raiders win. All right, week 2, off to Denver. NFL, just admit you hate us already. Seriously, Denver, week 2? All right, high altitude, road game against a troublesome rival. But you know what? This is a W2. If Chucky has prepared for anything, it's the AFC West. We're coming into your house and putting our feet on your couch, donkeys. Put your horse teeth back in your mouth, Elway. The Raiders are coming for you. You even have a quarterback yet? Raiders win. Week 3, Miami. Seriously, NFL. Why you do this to me? But you know what? It's the Dolphins. Win. Next, week 4, playing soccer. Another homeless football team. At least the Rams had a home in St. Louis, but the Chokers couldn't even get hometown support in San Diego. Now they're trying to capture L.A. Just stop. It's going to be a blackout. Unfortunately, the Chokers could win this. It's week 4, and that's the week that the Chargers look like a football team every season. By week 4, all the talking heads are talking about the Chargers being the best team in the AFC West, as if they haven't seen this movie 100 times before. All right, you got to let me finish. I'm a made man here. I got to finish. At this point, like I said, everybody's always talking about the Chargers. The Chargers are the golden boys of the AFC West. But we all know what's going to happen down the road. They're going to choke. That's why we call them the Chokers. It's given every season. But I'm going to give this game to them. I hate doing it. It's going to be a blackout stadium. Raider fans taking over like we always do when we play these chumps. But they're going to win this one. It kills me to say it, but this one's an L. But we're coming back for you later, Chokers. And we all know what happens as we get farther down into the season. So that's it for my first quarter of the season. I'm going 3-1, and I think I can live with that. We'll see. That's my hopeful picks. All right? Thanks, guys. Go Raiders.
Sonny, you gave us the first quarter rundown, and hey, that equals extrapolate that out. That's a 12-4 season, which I think is very palatable for all of us in Raider Nation. I hope he's right, man. But those first 3 games, very interesting. Very interesting the way that could go with at Denver and the Rams at home, because the Rams are going to be one of the most hyped teams this season. We know they're going to be the most played team on Madden, right? They got all the talent in the world, and like you mentioned earlier in the show, a young up-and-coming coach. So I think that's going to be very interesting to start off the season. And how much do you think, Sonny, that regardless of the outcome, that kind of sets the tone? What is if the Raiders go, 0-for those first 2 games and lose to the Rams and lose that Denver, is that it? Like, are we sticking a fork in a freaking season already, or can we? You think we can grow out of that?
Again, I don't know. That's 6 months from now. Here's what I can't move past, Murf. Now, I've been gone for a while. Can you unmake a man? Because Chuck just predicted the Raiders are going to lose to the Chargers. At this stage in the game, the Raiders are going 16-0, Chuck. Get your head out your freaking culo. What'd you turn from freaking thrash music to country? What's up, bro? The Raiders ain't losing to the Chargers. They're going 16-0. Come on. What the heck?
16-0 winning the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. 16-0 regular season, Murph. 18-0, 19-0. All Yeah, come on, Chuck. I don't know. I appreciate Chuck calling in, but we're 6 months away, man. And I think the two things he said, yeah, Denver week 2, NFL. I don't know if the NFL hates us. The guy gave us a bye week after London and the road Thursday night game with the Niners, so I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go conspiracy theory. But at the same time, it's put up or shut up, man. Gruden's going to come in. He gets a young, hot McVay, and then he goes to his arch rival in Denver. If we're 0-2 after that, Raider Nation's going to be coming unglued. If we're 2-0, Raider Nation's coming unglued the other way.
That's true.
So it's sink or swim, baby. And would you rather have it any other way? Let's go. Let's freaking go.
You just said young, hot McVay.
I didn't say young, hot McVay.
You said young, hot McVay.
I didn't say young, hot. Well, he can bench a lot. He has good pectorals.
We are Metallica, and we are here for your Oakland Raiders!
You know why we're out here, and we ain't playing around today.
From The Walking Dead to errant Jedi Knights, Raiders fans are a rogues gallery.
All right, Sonny, next up here on Raiders Fan Radio, we have a really cool interview with the aforementioned Anthony Capra. He is the pitching coach for the Wichita Wingnuts. He was recently named coach last year. Previous to that, he played 5 years with that organization. Also played in the Oakland A's organization and played his college baseball at Wichita State. So he's the career strikeouts leader for that team too. So pretty good pitcher throughout his career, and then recently just decided to move into the coaching ranks. So, but most importantly, the guy is a diehard Raiders fan. He grew up in Denver territory and now lives in Chiefs territory and still maintains his Raider fandom. But better to hear him talk about it than me. So let's go and get to that interview for you right now. All right, Raider Nation, welcome to the show. A man who's the pitching coach for the Wichita Wingnuts of the American Association of Independent Professional Baseball. He started off as a player with the Wingnuts and has recently last year been named the pitching coach for the organization. And most importantly for our show, he's a huge Raiders fan. So welcome to the show, Anthony Capra. Anthony, welcome to Raiders Fan Radio.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. You know, we got someone sent me a link a few weeks ago for a radio appearance that you did on KFH. You know, my co-host and I, we're Sicilian descent, and we're big Raider fans. And someone sent us this link, and they're like, look, you got to listen to this guy. He's a huge Raider fan, and he's an Italian. And so you got to get him on the show. And so we reached out to you, and thankfully you were able to make time for us. And then, Anthony, I kind of digging into a little bit. You also played in the Oakland A's organization, which we're also huge fans of the Oakland A's. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Oakland A's go, I played 5 years in their organization from 2008 to 2012. Got as high as AAA, so I never got to go play in the Coliseum, which would have been a dream come true, obviously. Being I actually grew up an Oakland A's fan as well. I was a Yankees fan and a Raiders fan, and then my dad was also a huge Oakland A's fan, so I picked up all those teams from him. But kind of a dream come true to get drafted by the Oakland A's and play in that organization. You know, I knew a lot of those players from, like I said, my dad. I mean, I know a lot of old guys, you know, like the Raleigh Fingers and the Catfish Hunters and those guys. So followed them growing up, but played for them for 5 years, and then ended up out in independent baseball, played in Wichita where I went to school, went to Wichita State, and then just recently last year, like you said, was fortunate enough to be named the pitching coach. So kind of changing gears a little bit, but still having fun, still enjoying the game.
What's that been like for you transitioning from player to coach? Been tough, or are you been able to kind of take the things you've learned over a career and be able to communicate that pretty well to your players?
It's been great. I mean, I think, like you said, I think I took a lot of the things that I learned over my career, and I just try and reflect that back to the players. You know, my biggest thing that I try and tell guys, I try and stay out of guys' way. Baseball's hard enough as it is without people in your ear all the time, and that was something that, as a player, used to bother me when coaches would just really try and take control of people's career. And I never really had anybody do that to me personally, but you see that as you go along in the game. And I was fortunate enough to start my coaching career under Pete Rose Jr., Pete Rose's son. And he really gave me a lot of freedom. So I got to figure things out on my own, and, things that work and things that don't work. And we had a great group of guys that, kind of let me do my thing. And, it was a good first year. And like I said, just excited to start this second year. And I'm still learning. It's, it's different than playing, obviously. And you gotta respect the players in a different light. And, going from a player to a coach, it is a jump, but I've loved it so far.
Now, something that, I don't want to skate over, you're the career strikeout leader for this organization. I mean, you got a legacy with this team. It started off in 2012 when you started off as a player, and obviously that's carried forward with you into your coaching career. How do the guys respond to you? I would assuming you got a lot of young guys that are coming up, may or may not be familiar with kind of what you've already established in that market and with that team. What are you finding when you get these young players coming in? Do you have their ear early on, or is it something you got to kind of work through?
It's a little bit of both. Obviously, the younger guys are usually the ones that are more willing to kind of look to a guy as a coach and say, help me with this, or what can I do here? And I think with the older guys, it's more of a, you have to slowly earn their respect and earn their trust. And I expect that because I was like that as a player. So, for the most part, like I said, though, everybody's been great with me as far as, we respect each other and there's a mutual respect. And one of the first things I tell players, and, we're about to start our season here in a couple of weeks. And one of the first things that I'll tell our pitchers when they get here is, it's not about me. It's about you. This is not about my career as a pitching coach. I'm here for you guys. So I think guys really respect that, I'm not here to make this about me. One of the things that we did last year as a team, which we were pretty fortunate to set the record for fewest amount of walks in the league. But that's not about me. That's about those guys and what they did. And I just am glad to be able to share a part of that with them as their coach.
And you guys are pretty good. You won a championship in 2014, and I know you've won numerous division championships. So what is the and including last year, right?
Yeah, I think we won our I want to say it was our 6th or 7th straight division championship. I like to joke around that I'm the best loser of all time because I think in my professional career, playing and coaching, I think I've lost 5 or 6 championships now, and I've only actually won one. But it's credit to this organization. They bring good players in all the time, and there's an expectation around here that they're going to compete for a championship. So it's just a fun place to be around, and guys do things the right way around here, and it's just kind of a fun place to be in general.
So one more question about baseball, and then we'll get into the Raiders talk. How much? Now, when you played AAA for the A's, was that Sacramento? Because I live actually outside of Nashville now, and we have the Sounds, and the Sounds are now the AAA affiliate for the A's. And so, it's great for us. We get to go out there and, see guys on rehab. We've seen Josh Reddick, and we've seen Zito and Sonny Gray, and we saw Daniel Megnan coming up. Like, we get a chance to see some great players coming through. But you just missed that, didn't you? You were probably a River Cat, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I was a River Cat, and I was only there for a brief stint. It was kind of one of those timing issues where when I was there, somebody got pushed down from the big leagues, and I was the odd man out because I had just gotten there. But, I was in Sacramento, and that was like just a dream come true, honestly, in itself because, you were a step away from the big leagues, and they drew great crowds, and they had a great team that year. There were guys, Chris Carter and Kevin Kuzmanoff was on that team, kind of a career big leaguer, and that team was loaded. So it was just fun to be around that area and, that Northern California area. I love that area. So
awesome.
That was fun.
Now, all right, so let's kind of segue into that. You mentioned, playing out there in Northern California, but you're from Colorado and you're a Raider fan. So let's go ahead and get into the Raider stuff of here. Tell us about the origins of your Raider fandom.
It all starts with my dad. My dad was he was an Italian immigrant. He came over when he was 9 years old. I think it was 1966 he came over. And at that time, he didn't speak a word of English. He didn't really know much about the culture. But one of the first things that he saw was that the Oakland Raiders had a Italian quarterback, and it was Darryl LaMonica, obviously. And he kind of it was like a comfort thing for him, I think. He kind of made that connection, and he ran with it. And, my dad became probably the most rabid Raiders fan I'd say maybe ever. He's definitely tamed it down since then, but if you go to our house in Colorado, the biggest room in our house, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, Raiders stuff. He's got just Raiders pennants, posters, pictures, mini helmets, hats. His collection of hats is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It's just insane. And you couldn't even start a collection like this anymore. Him and my uncle did it together back in the day. My uncle's the same way with the Packers, but they just kind of got connected with a guy at a sports store. And, so obviously for me, I didn't have a choice. I grew up in a Raiders culture. It was every Sunday we were watching Raiders games. And I mean, I have pictures of myself as a kid, I'm wearing Raiders stuff, and he put a helmet on my head, and I didn't have a choice growing up. So it was a blessing and a curse growing up in Denver, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
So who are some of your favorites? We know your dad was a big LaMonica guy, so we're going back to the first Super Bowl. We're talking about early in the Raiders' history, right? And early in their existence, and some classic teams even go back, to the AFL days. But what about for you? So growing up, who are some of your guys? Who are some of your favorite players?
Well, it's kind of funny, I guess, for me growing up. Because of him, and his favorite player actually is Ken Stabler. There's an entire wall of that room I was talking about dedicated to Ken Stabler. That's his guy. He's got every Ken Stabler card, I think you could imagine, everything like that. So kind of funny for me that I think my first favorite player would probably be Tim Brown, just because that's when I was growing up. He was the best player. And, the first game I went to, he was there, and it was like him and Napoleon Kaufman and those guys, kind of that era. But I think if you were to ask me my favorite Raider of all time, I'd probably say Jack Tatum. And it just goes back to, like I said, that era and that culture and the Raider swagger and pride and poison and stuff, because that was what I learned from my dad. And growing up, again, when they used to have card shows like at the malls, he would take me. And I think I met Ben Davidson. I remember his giant hand swallowed up my little hand when I got to shake his hand. And I met Stabler and I met Jack Tatum, but I just remember there was something different about Jack Tatum when I met him. It was like, this dude's something different. Like, he's a little crazy. And I just like his attitude and his era. And I've read his books, his assassin books, and it's all just that mystique about him. So probably my all-time favorite Raider would be Tatum, but, obviously my loyalties run deep, and you could go to the Tim Browns, and right now I'm a big fan of the Carr and all the guys.
It's funny that we've had different guests on the show, and one of the things that just a common thread of Raider fandom and Raider origins of Raider fandom is our dads and the mystique of the Raiders. And I'm kind of the same era. I wasn't old enough I kind of remember the tail end of Stabler's career when he was with the Oilers and then the Saints, but I don't remember him like I remember, unfortunately, some of those quarterbacks for the Raiders. It really wasn't until, there was a lot of rough years in there, but the mystique of the Raiders and that classic lineup of the 70s, speaking of Italians and Raiders, we've had even Phil Villapiano on our show, and hearing him and just those guys they're almost like superheroes when you're a kid, when you hear our dads tell us stories about these guys, isn't it? Like, you kind of almost, it's next level. They're almost beyond athletes at a certain point.
Exactly. And it's funny. I've never thought of it like that, but that's exactly how it is. I think of those guys in like that 76 Super Bowl team. They're like superheroes, because I know, like, I'm 30 years old. I shouldn't know guys like George Beeler and, Villapiano and those guys, but it's like, there's just a whole kind of like platform of guys that I'm like, wow, those are the Raiders. That's who I want the Raiders to be like now. And, like I said, growing up for me, it was a little bit tough because the Raiders weren't very good when I started as a real fan and started being able to pay attention. And I think the first quarterback I remember was Hostetler, and he was okay, but they didn't do much with him. And like I said, growing up in Denver, I'm 10 and 11 years old when the Broncos won their first Super Bowl. Well, that was the worst day of my life because I knew I had to go to school the next day with all my friends who they knew I was a Raiders fan. So I remember that ride home. We watched that game at my uncle's. They beat the Packers. And I remember that ride home. I asked my dad, I said, do I have to go to school tomorrow?
Yeah, you were right in there with like Jay Schrader and those guys. My Uncle Bruz used to tell a joke all the time. He'd say, what do you call a blonde that screws a whole football team? Jay Schrader. You had some rough years in there with the LA Raiders, but being a fan outside the market, right? Didn't matter to you if they were, I'm assuming, Oakland or LA. What do you think about now? Back to Oakland and now off to Vegas. Does that affect your fandom at all? What are your thoughts about the Vegas move?
It doesn't. I hate the fact that they're going to leave Oakland. I really do. To me, they are the Oakland Raiders. It really bothers me that they're going to leave, but Honestly, I just think I feel like the city dropped the ball. I think they had every chance they could to keep the Raiders, and the city kind of made it known that they didn't really want them that bad. So, I think it's going to be a really good thing for them getting a brand new stadium in Vegas. It may be, I tell all my friends, they may have the least home field advantage of any team, but every game's going to be a sellout, and there's going to be a good crowd there, and it'll be a cutting-edge stadium and a great place to play. So it's going to be hard to see them go. And I know, like, when they went to Los Angeles, my dad was pissed, but, loyal Raiders fans, they're going to be Raiders fans, and that's me, I feel like. So if it has to be the Las Vegas Raiders, it has to be the Las Vegas Raiders.
What about, speaking of home field advantage, I was going to ask you about this. You're kind of in Chiefs country. You're, like 3 hours away from Arrowhead?
Yeah, 2.5, 3 hours from KC.
So what is that like for you there? I mean, probably pretty familiar territory coming from Denver and then now being in KC territory. But what about going to the games? You have a chance to go see them. This year, schedule just got released. Last game of the year could be for the division. Raiders at Kansas City. It's going to be cold. That's going to be awesome, right? You get a chance to go to those very often?
Yeah, I actually I went to my first Raiders-Chiefs game just this past season. My girlfriend took me as kind of a surprise thing, which was cool because I've actually only been to probably 4 or 5 Raiders games. They've all been on the road. I haven't had a chance. And I told my dad, I said, we are going to an Oakland Raiders game before they move up from Oakland. I've been a fan for too long to not go to a game in Oakland. But, I got to go to the game last year, which unfortunately was pretty ugly, but got really good seats. And I was down on the Raiders sideline of the seats. So that was cool to see that. And, KC fans and I don't know if it's like I said, because I grew up around Broncos fans, but they seem way better than Denver fans to me. I couldn't stand going to Denver games. And like I said, all my little friends, they were Broncos fans. So I always had to hear it growing up, but I got a lot of friends out here now. They're Chiefs fans and they seem a lot better. And I have way less of a problem with the Chiefs than I do the Broncos.
So they're pretty accommodating, huh? Pretty cool fans to be around, or at least, you don't hear it as much walking through the parking lot wearing your Tim Brown jersey?
For the most part. And I was, I think I was wearing my Khalil Mack jersey at the game last year. And I mean, we were right in the middle of, I got my girlfriend even to wear a David Carr jersey and a beanie. So we were in the middle of Chiefs fans and they were all pretty good sports about it.
That's awesome. I've really grown fond of going to road games. Of course, been to my share of home games, but really whether we've been on the road and seen them in Atlanta, we've seen them in Tennessee 3 years in a row, just because I happen to live outside of Nashville and they've come here 3 years in a row, so that's been pretty cool. But we've seen them in Miami and thinking this year either the Niners, which will be an interesting game because that'll be still in the Bay Area, but that Chiefs game at the end of the year, I think that's going to be a very interesting matchup. I'm really looking forward to seeing that and maybe experiencing a game there firsthand in KC. It sounds like it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely, and just because it is the Chiefs, it's going to be a big game anyways, and obviously with the hopes that we should have this year with the team that they bounce back a little bit, it could have some playoff implications. So should be a great game. And, just as a football fan, everybody should go. If you take your loyalties aside, everybody should go see a game at Arrowhead. It is a cool place to watch a game, and they are loud and they are passionate fans. It's the first game I ever went to there was unfortunately a Broncos-Chiefs game, so I had no rooting interest in the game. But it was ugly, but it was loud and it was fun. It was just a fun environment to watch a game.
You know what? Sometimes it's almost kind of fun to go to football games where you don't have a rooting interest. I remember the very first NFL game I ever went to was a Monday night game between the Niners and the Eagles at Candlestick, and I wore all my Raider gear, and I just rooted against the Niners just to have people boo at me and throw stuff and whatever. But I'm like, I have no interest in either one of these teams. We could care less, these two knucklehead teams in the NFC. You know what I mean? It's almost kind of fun to go to a game like that where you're like, whatever.
Yeah, and that's how it was for me. That was back when the Broncos had Tebow still, and it was like, well, this is team 1A and 1B that I hate, so I guess I'll be on the Chiefs side because I'm here and I hate the Broncos. So I guess you could say I was somewhat of a Chiefs fan for a day, even though I would never say I'm a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I won't clip that part out and replay that. I won't do that to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I might get disowned in my family if that got out.
Yeah, I'll send your dad a link.
Yeah.
Well, hey, real quick, Anthony. First off, can't thank you again enough for joining us on the show. We'll be talking to Anthony Capra. He's the pitching coach for the Wichita Wingnuts. Anything we can promote before we let you go? Any websites, any season ticket numbers? I mean, anything that we can do to help?
We're a small market team, and Wichita, they draw okay, but yeah, if there's any fans out this way that I know independent baseball gets a bad rap because it's called independent baseball, and for me as a player, I didn't want to play independent baseball, and I kind of got my hand forced into it. It's actually good baseball. So, if there's any fans in this area that want to come out and watch good baseball, I wouldn't say it's not good baseball if it wasn't. I'm not trying to get people out there just to go. So, come check it out. I mean, it's a good product, and the players are passionate and they're good, and it's a better product than you would expect. I think WichitaWingnuts.com is the website, and all the ticket information should be on there. And if anybody hears this and wants to email me or get me on Twitter, I'm send me a message. I'll hook you up with free tickets. It's a good time to come out.
Especially for families, to me, there's nothing better than minor league ball. It's a blast. You can take your family out there for a reasonable price. You get nice up close and personal to the players and the action on the field. It's a good time, a nice afternoon at the ballpark, man. To me, you can't beat, as much as we're football nuts around here. There's also something nice and cool about just sitting back and enjoying a baseball game, and you know what I mean, having peanuts, a hot dog, and you can't beat it. So, yeah, absolutely, Raider Nation. Anybody out that way, definitely go and check them out. And so, Anthony, before we let you go, we always ask for a message to Raider Nation. And it could be about play on and off the field. It could be, sometimes there's divisions in the fandom with all the stay in Oakland thing versus the Vegas stuff. What would your message, your overall message be out there to Raider Nation?
I guess my message would be for the fans, I guess, keep passing on the passion of the Raiders. I know we haven't been where we want to be as a team and winning wise recently, but the Raiders, it's formed a special bond, like I said, just between people like me and my dad, and it's something that I'll cherish. Like I said, just going to those card shows and meeting former players and just having something to bond on. Keep that up and keep passing the passion on, because it's a special thing. And like you said, when I was a little kid, I viewed my dad's favorite players as superheroes, and I thought of my dad as a superhero because he was a Raiders fan. So just keep doing that for each other.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Anthony, again, thank you so much for joining us here on Raiders Fan Radio. We appreciate your time today. Good luck this season. Good luck with your coaching career, and we'll look forward to following you and the success of the Wingnuts this season.
Thanks a bunch. I appreciate it. Just win, baby.
All right, Sonny, there was our interview with Anthony Capra, pitching coach of the Wichita Wingnuts. Sonny, what'd you think? Isn't it eerily similar how much our stories match up as far, not just us, but I mean a lot of people that we talk about in Raider Nation, not necessarily the Italian part of it, but dad, telling stories about the Raiders of the 70s, falling in love with the mystique, the colors, the whole idea, the concept of the Raiders, getting passed down from generation to generation. And then even there, when we asked for his message to Raider Nation, it was keep the legacy alive, keep passing this stuff down. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's almost like he could be our cooler cousin, Italian heritage, got the same stuff passed down, from his father to him. I think, our great grandparents came over. I think it was his father, right, who was born over there.
That's correct.
Italy?
Yep.
So he's a little more closer to the homeland than we are, but super cool. And again, yeah, it's just really eerily similar how so many, and I guess I'm late 30s or early 40s, so it makes sense that our generation's fathers who grew up in the 60s and 70s with really the birth of the Raiders and quite frankly was the most successful time of the Raiders would be sharing those stories, So every time I hear that, though, Murph, I just kind of think, am I going to be able to do that? Or am I going to have to keep going from my dad's stories, Because they say for a culture to die, it has to move away from its context. And after one generation, that culture dies, right? And so if the Raiders really don't start giving us something good, the new culture of the Raiders is just going to be dysfunction and losing, because despite the 2016 season, there hasn't been much to pass down. My kid in his room, before we transformed it into a dinosaur-themed room, he had Kenny Stabler hanging in there because there hasn't been a quarterback since that was worthy enough to put on the wall, and so Carr could be that. Matt could be, a stud for us, but will we, and I always think this, because like so many times it's never, oh, I got to watch them win when I was a kid. Oh, man, when I was a teenager, they were winning. It's always my dad told me about when they used to win. Well, can I say that to my own kid someday? Like, that's what I kind of think,
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have because you're right, because it's been, look, I'm in my mid-40s now, and I'm kind of, I was barely old enough to remember the Raiders of the 70s. In fact, we were talking to Anthony, I talked about remembering watching Stabler play. I remember him more as far as visually watching on television, more the Oilers and Saints than I did as a Raider.
Yeah,
now I remember. Now again, the imagery of Stabler was always around because of our uncles and dads, and because there was Stabler pictures or Stabler talk. So that, but as far as like me actually sitting down and watching on television, my first quarterback was Jim Plunkett. Like that, you know what I mean? So you're right. I mean, like I'm already on the tail end of the age of people that can. So my kids, I'm telling them, when I tell them Stabler stories, they're not my Stabler stories. They're your dad's Stabler stories or my dad's Stabler stories.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I tell my kids, a little bit about Plunkett and maybe even more so the Raiders of the 80s. Like we talk about, it's funny. It's just an interesting conversation, something to think about. When I talk to my kids about the Raiders, I don't talk to them like our dads did and uncles did with us. I talk to them more about conceptually what the Raiders are. And I'll tell them stories of like instances, but I don't tell them, because you're right, I don't have those tales of dominance and those, we don't have that kind of stuff. So, and in fact, for a long, long time, it was kind of a joke that Dad's football team sucks. And whether, you know what I mean? Whether to my kids and my wife, they're like, "Oh, Dad, you're so funny." Because I would be like, "Oh, this year, we're going to be so much better." Terrell Pryor's. This is the year. Terrell Pryor's he's a for real athlete, you guys. You understand? And he's going to do this and he's going to do that. And they're like, "Okay, Dad, we hear this every year." I'm like, "No, but I'm real this time." And then sure enough, 2 years later, the guy's playing wide receiver in Cleveland. And they're like, "What happened to your guy, Dad?" I'm like, "Oh, now we got the real guy. Now we got Derek Carr." Yeah, okay, Dad. What's what I mean? Like. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you. Son. It's interesting, man. That's an interesting topic. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. I thought surely after 2016 it was going to be it.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
And so, the mystique and the culture can only go on for so long. And the Raiders, the first two games of the season are kind of a microcosm for what they're going to have to do over the next 3 or 4 years. If they don't have a winning culture in Vegas, that's not going to bode well for anybody. They'll be another sideshow like Britney Spears is, or Wayne Newton, or freaking Louis Anderson. Superstars, who aren't a superstar no more, go to Vegas, right, to end out their career, and terrible. So the Raiders, they need to win. Like, they need this to happen, and I think they're aware of that, which is why Mark Davis said, "Gruden, I'll freaking pay $100 million. Just come. Just come." I think they're aware of it. And so it's going to be interesting to see if we get a legacy, or if the legacy we've had for the majority of my adult life simply continues without the rabid home base. Like, there's a lot on the line right now, So it'll be interesting going forward. Hopefully, I'll be able to share with my kid some good stories one day.
Hey, just one time, I need it.
Raiders Fan Radio.
All right, Sonny, that brings us to the end of another riveting episode of Raiders Fan Radio. You can check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you can find a podcast, we exist. There's also a Raiders Fan Radio app. You can find that on Android. We're going to let, Sonny, the Apple app, we're going to let it die. Frankly, Apple folks, and you're an Apple guy, You guys use your podcast app that comes with Apple?
It's much better. Much better.
Nobody uses other apps for podcasts. So the usage difference when you look at our Android.
Actually, clarify. We used to use the podcast app for Apple. Then they did an update, and the update sucked. But now I use one called, what's it called? Something Cast, and it's beautiful. But there's a ton of them that work better than the app that Libsyn gives us.
There you go. So we're going to let that one go. We're going to let that one die off. Now, we do have a bunch of people still on the Android app, so we're going to let that one live. So if you're an Android listener, then definitely your app will still continue to work. And if you don't have our app and you're an Android user, then check it out. You can go find us in the Google Play Store there and download the app. But for iOS, that one's good. We're just going to let that one die off. And then again, and look, I have our app on my own phone, but I use Podcast Addict. It's nice to have the app, and those for you that listen to us on the app, thank you very much. But yeah, there's so many different ways. Yeah, there's so many different ways to consume podcasts nowadays. But anyways, we're on all of them. So aside from our own app, we're on everything else. So definitely check us out. If you would do us a solid, though, please, whatever platform you use, please subscribe to us, Raiders Fan Radio, and if there's an opportunity to rate us or review it, like on iTunes, please do that. It helps our show out tremendously. So thank you very much to those of you that have supported the show in that way, and thank you to those of you that will do that going forward. But hey, most importantly here as we sign off, thanks, Sonny. Glad to have you back, man. This was good. This was fun.
Yeah. It feels good to be back. Hey, you know what's going on right now, Murph?
What's that? What's that?
Right now as we're talking?
What's that?
The Raiders fan convention, I think, down there in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. We should go to that next year.
We should go to that. We've actually talked about maybe, instead of one of the road trips to a game, maybe we make a road trip, or, then they have the same one on the East Coast. And I know it's a long way to go for you. But there's the Raider Fan East Coast convention as well. Maybe we'll work in one of those. We need to have somebody invite us to broadcast live.
I think we got invited to the East Coast one.
Oh, we did?
It's on the East Coast. Yeah.
Okay,
by one of those clubs out there.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we don't want to invite ourselves. We don't want to just show up with our microphones and be like, "Hey, we're here to broadcast live." From here. No. Someone's got to ask us, but we'll be glad to do something like that. That'd be fun. Hey, so speaking of that, real quick too, before we go, we gonna do a road game this year, man? Kind of. You congratulations, you got another baby on the way, so you may not be able to get out of the house.
Quit telling people about my sex life, bro.
So it's happened at least 3 times.
I know, 3 times.
Your wife is a saint.
Yeah, we were planning on going to because last year we went to the Broncos at home. Or no, last year we went to Tennessee.
Yeah.
The year before that, we went to the Bronco game at the Raiders.
Correct.
When the Raiders kind of announced to the world they were legit again. And then this year, we're going to – because we take our redheaded adopted cousin Ryan with us, and he's a Broncos fan. So we were going to go to the game at Denver, but that is the exact due date of my kid, And so I don't know. The Niner game looks appealing, but you do something big on Halloween out there, so I'm not sure. I hope so. We might just have to go separately. We can.
That would be weird. That would. Yeah. We'll have to. Yeah, that would be odd. Maybe we'll Skype it in or something so we could still do our live broadcast.
I'll find another 7'7" tall bald guy to go with me, so that'll be okay.
Yeah, because Miami's interesting. That's an interesting trip for me. It's like, as I mentioned earlier, it's my anniversary, so that'd be kind of cool if I could talk my wife into go to the beach for the weekend, right? And then we just slide in a Raider game there, right? So that would be kind of cool. Also, Kansas City is not that far from me, and to go there on the last game of the year with the playoff implications, that would be very, very interesting.
That atmosphere would be amazing.
And then, the other game I was thinking about is that at Cincinnati, it's not only because it's pretty close to me, but because I'll probably be the only one there. And I don't mean the only Raider fan. I just mean I'll be the only one there because the Bengals will probably be like 2 and whatever at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It'll be you and about 20,000 Raider fans, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. So anyway, thank you again for joining us here for another episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Sonny, you going to be back to join us next week?
Yeah, man. Back every week from now on.
Fantastic. We'll look forward to it, man. And thank you, Raider Nation. And it's Raider Nation wherever.
Oh, we're doing it together. Oh, we're doing it together now?
That's what Uncle Mosh and I were doing that. So if you want to follow your own, march to your own beat and do your own thing, that'd be okay.
No.
You go ahead. Go ahead. You
sign it out. It's yours.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's your thing. Go do it.
It's Raider Nation, wherever,
But before, I just did Raider Nation wherever forever, and then that was it.
Yeah, because you never shared it with me, but I'm sharing it with you.
I don't want to be shared with. Just go do it. It sounds weird if we trade off like that.
No, it doesn't. That's what radio people do all the time.
All right, go ahead.
It's Raider Nation wherever.
Forever. The Raiders ain't losing to the Chargers. They're going 16-0. Come on. What the heck?
16-0 winning the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.